This video is sponsored by Squarespace, the all-in-one platform to build your beautiful online presence and run your business. Hey, Marcus House with you here. This week, Starship number 15 and the testing of the latest changes to the Raptor engine configuration was underway. We dive right into all the updates at Boca Chica, Texas. We had the always amazing launch of the Delta IV Heavy with the NROL-82 mission, as well as yet another Starlink launch. We catch back up on the latest flight from the Mars helicopter Ingenuity. The SLS core stage was delivered to Kennedy Space Center, and we have a few things to share with both the Crew 1 and Crew 2 missions. Yet another eventful week of space news.
Okay, Neil, we can see you coming down the ladder now.
So this has been a really important week for Starship development. All eyes have been on the latest Starship prototype. Starship 15, of course, has many changes to its design compared to previous prototypes. Due to that, it has been very interesting to watch the testing process play out for this one in particular. It has undergone several risk reduction checks ahead of its engine static fires. The first of those tests fired up all three of the Raptor engines, number 54, 61 and 66, for just a few seconds at 4:57 PM local time on Monday, April the 26th. We all get that front row seat due to the amazing Boca Chica gal and NASA spaceflight capturing this wonderful detail. Shortly after this event concluded, Elon Musk said that the launch could happen later this week, meaning that the static fire must have gone well. This test, called a tank handoff, utilizes both tanks during the 3-second ignition, handing over from the main tanks to the header tanks. A quick data review followed, as it always does. What we generally see with such reviews is that SpaceX finds issues with one or more of the engines, which then require a swap out and a repeat of the test in the following days. Just get this though, SN15 found no issue to address. This is the first time that a full-scale Starship prototype has ever not needed a Raptor replacement. This, we believe, is mostly thanks to the upgrades to this new generation of Raptor engine, which appears to have performed extremely well with that initial static fire. That same evening, SpaceX distributed safety notices to Boca Chica Village residents indicating that a second static fire was planned on Tuesday. Fast forward to that day at around 6:49 PM, and SN15 performed another static fire, drawing its propellant solely this time from the header tanks to further validate the vehicle. Elon Musk concluded the event on Twitter right after saying that the results are all good so far. Starship SN15 once again is expected to target a similar 10-kilometer flight where it would perform a complete ascent, controlled belly flop, landing flip maneuver, and this time hopefully a soft touchdown. All four previous failures ultimately had different causes that have been solved and fixed along the way. Starship SN8 lost fuel tank pressure, starving its Raptors and causing a loss of thrust during the landing. One of SN9's Raptors failed to ignite for a landing burn, leading to the vehicle not being able to correct its orientation. Starship SN10 landed in one piece, but that lone landing engine underperformed when it began to ingest helium ullage gas. Goodbye shortly after there for SN10. Then SN11 exploded almost immediately after attempting to ignite its three engines for landing. Luckily, beginning with Starship SN15, SpaceX has moved to an upgraded iteration of the next generation engine, raising hopes to substantially improve the reliability and success of these high altitude launch and landing tests. While all of that has been going on, Starship 16 is not far away from its testing regime itself, with it already in final stacking. Its nose cone underwent RCS tests in front of the low bay early in the week, and it was then stacked on top of the nose cone barrel soon after. Late in the week, we saw it receive its nose cone via the high bay bridge crane, so we hope to see that prototype be ready for flight soon. Furthermore, Super Heavy booster number 3's afterdome was sleeved, and part of Starship 20's afterdome was spotted as well. As mentioned in last week's video, these are the two vehicles that are planned to be used for an orbital flight before July. This will be an amazing milestone, and if you want more detail on that and missed it last week, do check out that video. We cover this each and every week, so if you want to follow this progress, just click all those things that you need to click and we can all follow it together. Thanks very much for your support of the channel here. Along with SN16's updates, SN17 has begun stacking as well, with its common dome being lifted into the mid-bay and then stacked on top of the middle liquid oxygen tank section. We are thinking that SN17 is going to receive a full heat shield belly, as both that common dome section as well as the nose cone barrel section have been spotted with a plethora of tiles over one half of each of those sections. Now, the orbital launch site is a hive of activity as well, with the installation of the ground support equipment or GSE tanks, as well as work on the launch mount and integration tower. The tower itself has now started to rise into the air next to the mount. When finished, this is going to be the tallest structure in the region at nearly 152 meters in height. This tower will eventually feature a crane to stack the ship and booster onto the mount, and as well it's going to include arms that are designed to catch the returning booster. We have also seen multiple comments from Elon Musk around the potential of catching the Starship itself as well. That to me still seems a little unnecessary, considering that the Starship must have legs to land on Mars. The booster I get, remove the legs to save mass, catch the booster, repeat, and yeah, seems like a logical idea, even if it does sound like something out of the distant future. We did think that about landing orbital class boosters only a few years ago though, so I've learned not to write these ideas off right away. Given though that the Starship itself requires legs regardless, you would think that the most important thing for SpaceX to do is make these landings so ridiculously effective and accurate that the risks associated with this type of landing become extremely small. I'm interested in your thoughts on attempting a Starship catch. Let me know what you think in the comments below. So yes, this orbital launch tower is being constructed out of steel columns at the corners with cross beams running between them. These cross beams are then also supported by diagonal beams. Altogether, this makes it so that each level will have 4 columns, 12 cross beams and 24 diagonals. Additionally, we found that each of the first level columns are roughly 18 meters tall. From the second level and up, these columns seem to be around 15 meters. That means that with the 12 meter tall concrete base, the 18 meter tall first level, and then the following 15 meter tall levels, we will likely see a tower that stretches up nearly 8 entire levels here. You may be wondering how they're going to manage lifting, bolting in, and connecting all of these parts over at the orbital launch pad. Well, in these photos from RGV aerial photography, we've found what looks to be jigs for assembling the columns, cross beams, and the diagonals all at once at the Sanchez gas site. By taking the pre-assembled completed structure and rolling some self-propelled modular transporters or SPMTs underneath, you could take an entire level over to the launch site in one single trip. This would minimize the amount of time required to install each level piece by piece. So yes, we're hopeful that this is going to enable quicker assembly by only picking up the level in its completed form, which would then let workers immediately fit that and begin welding or bolting it together. With all of this figured out, we believe that the tower assembly will ramp up even faster and may likely allow for orbital attempts in July, assuming that the booster and Starship are ready for that attempt. Also, some more information has come to light this week as to how those GSE tanks at the orbital tank farm could be insulated for long-term propellant storage. We'll talk more about that in a moment, but just quickly, a huge thank you to Squarespace today for their support of this video. Squarespace is an incredible all-in-one platform to build your online presence to promote yourself, your business, or your brand. Even if you have very little experience in creating your own online content, you will feel immediately right at home creating a website with Squarespace. You don't need expensive web developers or design skills. You just get started with the mountain of templates to choose from, all categorized here for your convenience. Simply select the one that matches your ideas, and that is it. You have a shell already built and awaiting your incredible content to be entered. You can even create revenue streams with your content by utilizing the monetization controls with member areas. To diagnose the effectiveness of your marketing, a great feature that I've been finding useful is the inbuilt analytics. This allows you to see who is visiting your site along with the way they browse it. You can instantly see statistics on the number of page views, where your traffic is coming from, and how much time the users are spending on the pages. If you want to check it out for yourself, just head to squarespace.com/MarcusHouse and save 10% off your first purchase of a website or domain. You'll find that link in the description below. We have been noticing some 12-metre rings being produced over by the Sanchez gas site for almost 2 weeks now. These rings were spotted early last week in RGV Aerial Photography's flyover, and it's clear that a total of 8 domes have been assembled. This correlates to the 7 cryogenic liquid storage tanks and 1 water tank that we have been suspecting. We believe that SpaceX is producing 12-metre tank shells to insulate those GSE tanks. These shells would not hold pressure, but rather just insulate with perlite foam or some other type of spray foam. This shell would leave around 1.5 metres of room filled with insulation to protect the internal tank from thermal boil-off of the cryogenic propellant. OBL here has been producing some animations to demonstrate what these shells will look like over those tanks. We measured out that these tank shells will be around 20 rings or around 36 metres tall. That means that they'll sleeve perfectly onto the GSE tanks, which are about 33 metres tall. Additionally, we've noticed that the methane GSE tanks will be 2 rings shorter, which correlates to their respective stands being slightly taller. This likely is due to SpaceX wanting to unify the height of the total tank farm and keep all elevation changes minimal. So yes, with all that new information about the orbital launch tower and GSE tank shells, do you think that SpaceX are going to be able to bring their orbital facilities up in time for a July launch? Let me know in the comments. Now, last week as our video went live, Crew 2 had only just docked to the International Space Station. This incredible shot here that was released by NASA just days later is of course SpaceX's Crew Dragon Endeavour, the very same Crew Dragon that Bob Behnken and Doug Hurley rode to the station last year. The SpaceX Crew 2 astronauts have joined Expedition 65 shortly after docking with the Harmony module's forward-facing International Docking Adapter. Just after this though was the video of all of the crew gathered here within the International Space Station. Just look at that amazing shot here of all 11 of the crew. The crew here on board even needed to create some temporary sleep stations. It is super busy up there on the station. Saying that, this is not the record for the most people at the station at any one time. The record for that, I believe, is with 13 crew with a few of the shuttle missions. Saying that, this is still quite amazing, and I'm sure it is very cramped up there right now. The Crew 1 mission was initially scheduled to return back to Earth on Wednesday, however NASA and SpaceX agreed to move the return due to weather forecasts not looking ideal in the splashdown zone. As it currently stands, that event should be occurring quite soon after this video goes live, so check out the replay if you've missed it already. Of course, before the departure from the International Space Station, Crew 1 astronaut and station commander Shannon Walker needed to hand over the command of the station to Aki Hoshide from JAXA from the Crew 2 team. After some fond farewells, the Crew Dragon Resilience was undocked autonomously and it departed from the space station. We should be seeing the safe return of Victor, Soichi, Shannon and Michael in one of the 7 landing zones here shortly. We just can't wait to see the following interviews for the team on this epic journey. Crew 1, of course, was the very first of 6 crewed missions for NASA that are scheduled to fly with the Commercial Crew program. Demo 2 with Bob Behnken and Doug Hurley was technically an extended demo mission, so wasn't one of those 6 missions. I will say though that Demo 2 mission still holds a special place in my mind as that epic milestone for SpaceX, sending the very first mission with crew on board. Now, this week, I and I'm sure everyone else that follows the industry are just super heartbroken with the news midweek about the passing of astronaut Michael Collins, the incredible command module pilot from Apollo 11, and also the pilot on the Gemini 10 mission. He made it to 90 years old before passing this week from his battle with cancer. Now, just imagine floating in the Apollo command module here all by yourself. Complete isolation. Below you, every earthborn human and creature in existence on this blue marble. The only 2 other people with you having just launched from the surface of the moon after setting foot on it for the very first time in history. We see in this photo taken by Michael, those 2 crewmates, Neil Armstrong and Buzz Aldrin, returning to dock with the command module from what could have been their very final hours. There were no guarantees at all with this mission. Thank you so much to you, Michael Collins, for inspiring the world. Your courage here is phenomenal. The will to explore. You have left an amazing legacy behind. Heading away from Earth for just a moment, we can talk a bit about our robotic friends on Mars. In last week's video, we of course talked about the 2 initial groundbreaking flights that Ingenuity did. These were very small hops just to ensure that the systems would work as expected. Shortly after, however, Ingenuity took to the skies for a 3rd time. In this test flight, Ingenuity had a much more complex flight than before. It ascended 16 feet or 5 meters in height like its prior flights. However, this time it speeded horizontally by approximately 164 feet or 50 meters at a speed of around 2 meters per second. It then slowed down, reversed that direction and returned back to its takeoff site, landing almost exactly at the same spot. More recently, they did have a hiccup with getting the 4th flight off the ground, but on Friday, April the 30th, off it flew again, breaking its own records. Ingenuity rose around 5 meters above the surface before flying south around 133 meters and back. It was in the air this time for 117 seconds. Just over a week ago, we were not even sure if this was possible to fly on another planet, and now here we are doing it on a regular basis. Also, thanks to Perseverance for recording the footage here, allowing us to see all of these amazing flights. This shot here that was shared by JPL shows a shot looking back here towards the rover. The amount of dedication and planning it takes to get these test flights to have all happened at such a rapid pace is just unbelievable. Huge congratulations to NASA and the Jet Propulsion Laboratory again for these amazing achievements. This has captivated a new set of young budding scientists and engineers. Now this week we also got to witness the very first flight of 2021 for United Launch Alliance with the NROL-82 mission for the National Reconnaissance Office using a Delta IV Heavy. On Monday, this launch for the United States military went off without a hitch. In contrast, the NROL-44 mission was delayed for around 3 months before it took flight back in December of 2020. If you recall, there were numerous ground support equipment issues that had caused all sorts of problems, and since then there has been a lot of work going on upgrading the launch pad in preparation for this mission. That all paid off with this successful launch. As with other national reconnaissance missions, the payload for this launch was hidden under a shroud of secrecy. All we can really know for sure is that it must have been quite a sizable payload, otherwise they would have used a smaller rocket configuration such as an Atlas V. Based on the launch trajectory, it was assumed to be heading out into a Sun synchronous orbit, but of course there may be more to that story. It was a beautiful day out there at Vandenberg Air Force Base, and there we see that very common ignition of the Delta IV Heavy with the flames igniting there and running right up the rocket body. Something always feels just a little abnormal when people see that for the first time, but this is actually quite expected. When the valves open in the early ignition sequence, hydrogen flows out of the engine. Because hydrogen is so light in comparison to the air, it rapidly rises up the rocket body. Once the ignition occurs, we see the hydrogen ignite there into what looks like a massive fireball. It's even strong enough to toast the orange exterior of the tank as well. We see here this nice touch on the side of the rocket for this launch as well, thanking all of those incredible frontline workers putting themselves in harm's way to keep us all healthy during this very tough year. I think it's also worth noting that with this flight complete, only 3 Delta IV Heavy flights remain. This is of course because Vulcan is now replacing that vessel. It is going to be sad to see the Delta IV Heavy go. It's certainly one of my favourite rockets. Hopefully they'll install one at the Rocket Garden at Kennedy Space Center alongside its predecessor, the Delta II. This week, NASA delivered the SLS core stage to Launch Complex 39 after all of those green run tests. This massive stage completed its journey on the Pegasus barge, coming in on Wednesday, April 27th after travelling around 1,450 kilometres. Greg Scott was out there capturing some incredible photos of the delivery there as well. These shots of the barge there beside the vehicle assembly building are just awesome. Now that the core stage has arrived, all of the parts for the rocket are now at NASA's Kennedy Space Center for the first Artemis mission. SpaceX launched another set of Starlink satellites on Wednesday, April 28th as well. The Falcon 9's first stage completed its 7th flight and landing successfully, and this one had some very nice looking descent footage of the booster before it cut to the choppier drone ship perspective there on Just Read the Instructions. The second upper stage deployed the 60 Starlink satellites into low Earth orbit 64 minutes into the mission, and there we see that beautiful clean footage of them drifting away. Also Also, there is a new white coating on some of these as mentioned in the stream, which we assume to be a test sample. However, Jesse the host did also mention that these surfaces face away from the Earth, so shouldn't cause any extra reflectivity. This now makes just over 1,430 satellites in orbit currently, obviously excluding those in the past that have been decommissioned. Finally, the initial core module of China's space station was launched on April 28th as well on their heavy lift Long March 5B rocket. This 16.5 meter module is the first component, and it's actually going to be joined in low Earth orbit in the near future by two slightly smaller segments to create a T-shaped station that is scheduled to be completed by 2022. Over the next month or two, Chinese cargo spacecraft are expected to visit the module with the aim to have astronauts come on board mid this year, assuming all plans go smoothly. There is going to be a lot to cover with this during the year, so keep your eye out for more news. Space activity is going to only ramp up even further. So that wraps up another crazy week of space news. Remember as well that we are huge supporters of the transition to electric vehicles here on the channel, and our partner EV offers the ability to hire an electric vehicle in Australia. Perhaps you have wanted to take an extended test drive. You could be touring the country and want to drive around in a Tesla. If that sounds appealing to you, you can use the link in the description for a discount. Thanks to our amazing patrons and YouTube members as well. Your support contributes significantly to the frequency and the quality of these videos. The support that you all here provide allows us to increase the time that we can collectively spend in research, editing, and quality control. That is all thanks to that growing list of supporters right there. Thank you to each and every one of you. If you like what we're doing and you'd like to support what we do, you can join as a YouTube member via the join button below, or you can become a patron at patreon.com/MarcusHouse. Either of those options gives you access to chat with us more directly via the link rolls on our Discord server. You can have your name listed right here like all these other amazing people, and you also get earlier and ad-free access to the videos to watch before anyone else. A massive thank you especially to the production crew assisting greatly with all of the video production here, along with the quality control squad helping me research and proof the material for these videos. If you're interested in these topics and you'd like to keep up to date, remember to subscribe here below and follow me on Twitter at MarcusHouse. In the tile in the bottom left today we have my video from last week, in the top right is my latest video, and in the bottom right, content that YouTube has selected from my channel just for you. Thank you everyone for watching, and we'll see you all in the next video.